You guys having a good day so far? Enjoying BizBash? All right. Well, I am here to introduce our first speaker for Lounge and Learn. His name is Chuck Elias. He's the CEO and co-founder of Sciencio. Fun fact about Chuck, he developed his love of leadership in the Coast Guard and his critical business knowledge at Harvard. His topic that he's going to be speaking on today is how AI chatbots can increase revenue, create community, and drive cost savings. So let's give it up, put your hands together for Chuck Elias.
Welcome everybody. All right, I've got a clicker, a phone, and a mic, so we're going to try to do all this all together. I might put the phone down. We've got some seats up here if anybody wants to come. So we're going to talk about the power of chatbots. Right? But I'd like to start with what our job is. What we're doing as a company, right, is we're providing instant access to information and building community through regular text. I'm going to talk more about that. But before we start, I like to talk about business, right? And our job, everybody that's out there that's in the business community, we have one job. It's a shared job, which is we want to create loyal and passionate customers. Because we know loyal customers are the most profitable over the long term, and we know passionate customers bring us other customers. So if that's our shared objective, the question is, how do we do that? And we know how we do that. It's about experience. And we talk a lot about experiential marketing. We talk a lot about how do we build these amazing experiences. But experience is an interesting word, right? It's both a noun and a verb. The experience was great. I experienced an amazing event. But experience is really about a set of mini experiences. And so you can think about what we're trying to do when we talk about experience is creating that opportunity for each attendee to consume this content in an environment, right, that's going to be positive for them. And you notice that it's emotive, it's emotion, it's about a positive feeling. It's not about anything else. It's about how I felt, so that means it's individualized. So when we tear down this idea of experience and we start to say, well, what the heck, how do I get to experience? We have to start with needs. What do people need? And everybody's heard of Maslow, everybody knows what he did in the hierarchy of needs, but fundamentally what he was doing was talking about, well, how do I move up this pyramid? How do I self-actualize, right? And everybody understands that from Psych 101 what this means, right? If you start at the base level, it's about basic needs. I need food, shelter, warmth. I need sex for survival of the species, not the fun stuff. That's later. That's higher up. But fundamentally, you have to meet those first level needs before you can get the higher level needs. And this same challenge exists in the event world, right? So if you don't meet these basic needs, you can't really get to this experience, which is fundamentally what you're trying to do. And in a simple way of thinking about this is if I'm sitting in the audience and I have to go to the bathroom, it's a little bit like the Charlie Brown TV show. All you're hearing, no matter how exciting the topic and the speaker, all you're hearing is wah, 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 right? You're not paying attention to anything, right? So we want to look at these needs and figure out how do we fulfill these needs. And so if we understand the needs, then we say, well, wait, how do our customers, how do the attendees fulfill these needs? And this brings us to something called the job to be done. Right? And Clay Christensen's one of the great innovative thinkers in the last 100 years. Right? So Clay's come up with what he calls the job to be done theory. And the simple thing says that we hire products and services to do specific jobs. Right? And at every moment in time, we're making a decision about what product should we hire. And one great example of this is the milkshake. So let me ask a quick question. How many of you, if you were going to say, when are the most milkshakes sold by McDonald's? Would you say the weekend? Weekend, like hot Saturday, Sunday after the ball game? Would you say evenings? It turns out it's the morning. Monday through Friday. What are people, and it's through the drive-thru, what are people hiring a milkshake to do in the morning through the drive-thru on the weekend? Right? Is it sweet goodness? Well, it could be, but it feels a little decadent, right? Is it a beverage with a meal? Well, not really. Milkshake, egg muffin, I don't know if that really goes well together, right? Is it to drown your sorrow in calories? Well, maybe, but we hope not in the morning, right? Maybe later, right? It turns out that what people were hiring the milkshake to do was to occupy their mouth, their senses, and their time on the commute in. right? Because you're sucking it through a straw, you're taking the shake through a straw, it's controlled, you can't go too fast, you get the brain freeze, right? And it turns out that if you drink a milkshake in the morning, you can last through that 10, 11 o'clock in the morning thing. And they tried to hire a bunch of other stuff. They weren't competing, McDonald's wasn't competing against milkshakes, they were competing against bagels with cream cheese. But you're trying to mix the cream cheese and put it on the bagel and you always have that residue. A donut like disappears in 3 seconds, so you'd have to have a dozen of them to do the same job. So the concept is really simple that says every moment in time, you're hiring a product, a service to do a job. That's what we do, right? And the question is, what's going to fulfill that job the fastest and easiest for me? That's the job to be done. And if I look at job to be done and you think about it from an event standpoint, and you put yourself in the shoes of the people that are hiring this event broadly, there's a lot of different jobs, right? It could be you're here for learning. It could be you're here for networking, connecting, right? Lead generation, brand awareness, a lot of different reasons, right? If I'm an event owner, if I'm the one who owns the event or the planner, there's a lot of different reasons that they're hiring the event. I'm putting on the event for this reason. Right, so you can think about job to be done at a high level, you can think at a very, very narrow level. Both of those work. The other thing is that when you think about needs, you think about job to be done, the question is, well, how do I fulfill those needs? How do I fulfill the job? What do I choose? How do I assess my experience? And the point is that we assess our experience relative to every other experience we have. Right, so I doubt many of you, when you were saying, oh, what's the weather going to be like in LA, went and looked at a newspaper or instead I'm going to get there, you went to look at a map, right? So that you wouldn't do that because the information was instantly available through some other way, right? And so what's happened is we now have instant information at our fingertips. And one of the things we say when we do chatbots for small meetings, large conferences, weddings, sporting events, is that there's 3 characteristics that are universal. 1, everyone can text. Everyone can text. 2, no one will read anything you send. They won't read it fully, they'll skim it, they'll throw it in an inbox, they'll throw it somewhere, but they won't really read it. And then they'll get frustrated when they don't have the answers immediately available that you gave them. Right? So they're going to judge their experience on what they can do in a world where I can get instant information for everything. Right? Through Alexa or Google or some way, it's at my fingertips. Why can't I do it for your event? And so we like to say that kind of in the immortal words of Freddie Mercury, we have all become, our common kind of mantra, if you would, is that I want it all and I want it now. And if I can't get it, well, what's your problem? So the experience is going to be judged relative to everything else. So if you said, well, wait, I'm a planner and I'm putting on an event and I've got to somehow juggle a pyramid, a milkshake, and a voice bot, what the heck's going on? Right? What we're really talking about is your dilemma. Is how do you build community? How do you create a community, right? And how do you create these amazing experiences when you have limited budget staff and ever-expanding requirements? Okay, and so as you think about this problem and you think about the event, a week ago there was no one here. Today, they've been descended upon, right? When you're the event planner and you've organized it, Nicole talks about it, it's finally here, and by tonight there'll be drinks. Everybody with this event will just be like passed out, right? So it feels like you're under attack. You've got thousands of people asking questions that you've already addressed through other channels. But you've given them the information, they're not accessing it through those other channels. Okay? That's why we created EventBots. They're artificial intelligence, natural language processing chatbots. If you've used Betty, you've used our AI chatbot. Right? So if you've used Betty, you've used them. So that's a really complex way of saying, if you have a phone and can text, then you can use a chatbot. Okay? And more importantly, your attendees have the technology in their hand and they already know how to use it. You don't have to download it. You don't have to ask them to do anything. You have to say, can you text this number, and say hi. Text this number, that's all you need to do. Don't download anything. Don't go to a website. Here's how you access this information. Right? Chatbots support the user wherever they want to be. Right? And fundamentally, if you go back and you said there was a time before websites. Some of us are old enough to remember when websites didn't exist, and then websites existed. And we had email before, and then we had websites, but email didn't go away. And then we had event apps, and we still have websites. And now we have chatbots, and unfortunately, that other stuff isn't still going away. This is a channel that people are using, and they're using more than ever before. What we found is that most users in the business context want to communicate through SMS and web chat. That's what we see, almost universally. Now, why do we use text? Because it works. Everyone can text from 8 to 80. 98% of texts are read, and most are read in under 5 seconds. Okay? That means that your messages actually get read. Whether they're a scheduled notification, right, about, in this case, about, hey, the doors are open, or whether they're ad hoc, just in time, hey, we had to move a meeting, we had to change the plans, the agenda was wrong, whatever it is, it's an ad hoc, or if it's an emergency notification. Right? That's one of the most important, embedded in all of our bots, is the ability to send an emergency notification, which is one of the most important things we have to be able to do as planners, is to communicate quickly to everyone that's at that event. Now, chatbots have 2 key components. They have a template and they have a library. Right? A template is all the questions you can ask the bot, and a library is simply all the answers and who is allowed to see it. Okay, this is important because it means that 2 people can ask the same question and get a different answer on purpose. Right? A regular attendee says, "Where's dinner?" It says, "Hey, we got some food trucks. They're outside. Here's where you can see them." Right? A VIP asks the same question, "Where's dinner?" President Circle dinner is being held at Roost Chris. The car will pick you up. We're able to differentiate the response based on what we know about that individual. And so it becomes a really, really powerful use of both mass communication, mass information at scale, and deeply detailed one-to-one. Here's the answer you were looking for. Now, theoretically, a chatbot can be designed or programmed, trained to answer any question, but practically, you're going to decide the scope, right, which is how much do you want the chatbot to do, and the scale, which is for how many, for how long, for how many people, for how long, and across how many channels. Okay, practically, you're going to put a limit around that. In the simplest thing, if you ask Betty's trained on over 100 topics, 8 million different ways you can ask questions around this event. But if you say, "What's the weather in Beijing?" Well, yes, we could train Betty to answer that question if somebody wants to pay to have Betty trained on that. But why would you? Right? That's not what she's being hired to do. So we're not trying to be Google, we're trying to be the answer for your event. Now, the important thing here is, and why it requires really sophisticated and powerful artificial intelligence, is to actually, in conversation design, is to actually answer the question that was actually asked in all the different ways that it's done. Okay? So things like, where do I park? Do you have Wi-Fi? The correct answer to do you have Wi-Fi is yes. But if you walked up to me and said, do you have Wi-Fi? And I said yes, you'd say, what are you, a jerk? Really, you know what I mean. I want the network, I want the password, is it free, right? So this type of thing is what we're always trying to strive to get better and better with the artificial intelligence to understand what the need was. And our bots are delivering about a 95% correct response rate. Betty's like 96.1%, we track it all the time. Okay, about a 70% engagement and less than 1% opt-out through SMS. Okay, so crazy effective numbers in terms of once as you deploy these bots. No matter how smart a chatbot is, right, it's going to come across with a question that it does not understand. Okay, and actually that's the magic. That's where this thing really matters. Because what happens in the real world when somebody asks you, when you go to a store and you ask a question and somebody doesn't know an answer, or somebody calls your company and asks a question, what happens? You don't just keep berating the person. You say, wait, I don't know the answer. Let me get you somewhere where you can get help. But what we're doing with the chatbot is we're capturing that entire conversation, and we are able to then train the bot to answer that question the next time, so it doesn't have to go to a human. So what you're left with is the most critical, difficult questions are going to go to your humans, and everything else is going to go through the chatbot. That's where the power is. So the bots are getting smarter over time. Now, BizBash Betty started in May 2017. Like I said, 100 different user needs, 100 different topics, over 8 million different ways you can ask questions around that bot. She has become a team member, and we like to talk about, if you talk to the BizBash team, they'll say, text Betty, ask Betty. They wear shirts at different events and say, hey, text Betty. Right? She's the perfect team member. She's not a technology. She's a team member. Why? She says exactly what you want every time. Never calls in sick, doesn't say, I'm upset, I'm frustrated, I want to go home. Right? They're constantly learning, getting smarter all the time. They can handle thousands of disparate conversations at the exact same time. So we're delivering that at scale. Right? And it's a complete written record of everything that's going on. So when we talk about deploying EventBots, Right? What we're doing, and we like to say, is we're the voice of your data. You already have the data. You have the answers. It's how I started the presentation. You have the information. Right? We're just putting it into this form. We're using the chatbot to get right to that endpoint. So the way we do this is we harvest the data that you already have. You have a website. You have information. We're going to pull that information into the chatbot so that it is ready to respond and it's smart. So we're going to have a 1-hour kickoff meeting with your team, typically 6 to 8 weeks before the bot live date. Right? 2 weeks later, you'll have a working version of the bot. 2 weeks later. Right? And what we'll say is, okay, here's the information we know, here's the information we don't. You can provide us this information. You'll have a working version, and then we'll work to refine it. Work on discovery strategies, notifications, how do we use signage, what do we do to promote the bot, and how do we get the bot richer and richer in terms of availability, right? Now we also have self-service bots that literally can be turned on in 20 minutes, but when we're talking about full custom, like a Betty, we're doing it in 6 to 8 weeks, and we've actually, I don't encourage it, but we've deployed a Betty-like bot in 8 days. In 8 days. So again, I don't encourage it, but it's possible. So if you pull out your phones, it's a little show and tell. I need some help. Okay? So Betty, I put 2 numbers here. This is the 45426. That's the short code. If you're Canadian by any chance, you need to use the long code. Unless I use a different short code, which we do have, but for this event we don't have it active. You can use the long code. You can text Betty. Okay? So what I want to show you is just a couple things to just show you how we use this tool to actually get information. So first thing, everybody here that's texting Betty, you just say my profile, right? And when you text in my profile and you click that link, Betty's going to say, okay, here's the information I have about you. When you get that back, you're going to get a little pop-up that says, well, here's the information I have about you, right? That came through registration. It may be nothing. If you just self-register, you didn't do anything else. I don't really care. You can put your name in, you can put your mother-in-law's name, put somebody you can't stand, it doesn't really matter. I'm just kind of showing you how this all works, right? So you put the information in, and what happens is, when you click submit, that has now updated your profile in real time. Okay, if you then go to participant list, you'll actually find that. In that participant list, you can search, and you can find yourself the information that you just updated. Right, so what we're doing is we're using the channel to get right to the endpoint. We're using text that everybody can do to get right there, okay, and access that information. You can also go to exhibitors, right? So if you go to exhibitors, when you text exhibitors, you're going to get a link to the exhibitor list, which is data that's being pulled, in this case, from I don't know which one. I don't know which one it is, from the exhibitor system that they're using here. Right? We pull that data in. Okay? But what you can do there is we have what we call universal search. You can search for any field that exists in the exhibitor card, and that information is gonna give you the list of exhibitors that are left. Okay, so we're able to access really rich content, right, and present it to you in this case, through Betty. The other thing you can do is we can do polls, we can do feedback, we can do lots of things. So if you just text poll, I don't know which one you're going to get. There might be 2 polls that you can get. One's a silly one that's for me. Okay, but if you just text poll, all I'm simply showing you, I made one of those polls about 10 minutes ago in about a minute. Okay, and I make it all through the bot. On our side, I go jump into the admin functions through the bot. I'm texting the bot just like you are to get to this information. But you can answer the poll, and I can look at the responses and see what those look like right away in real time. Again, all this information, it's content, it's available, it can be thrown up on screen, however we want to do it. Okay? Now, I always say that I get to show this because I'm the CEO and I don't have anything to do with this really. My team does this, right? So we've won a bunch of awards. We've won most of the awards in the industry. We're humbled and proud that that's happened, right? But really the reason we win these awards is because our bots work. It's because they solve a business problem for you guys, make your lives easier, and drive attendee engagement, and that's why we've won the awards that we've won, and that's why we're excited about it. A couple of things about technology, right? Look, it doesn't, forget the IBM Watson commercials on TV, forget all the Google commercials on TV about how amazing AI is and everything else. The reality is, when you deploy technology at an event, it needs to work, right? It's not about, oh, if we do all these things and 9 months later it's going to work. It needs to work out of the box. And what we tell everyone, right, is that you should be able to see, real time, a live demo of the bot, right? So at the bottom of the screens of most of these, you'll see DB. That's DB is our live bot. But Betty is the bot for this event. DB is a bot that's running all the time. It never goes down. It's a live bot for a fake event in Chicago's Navy Pier. okay? And it's actually has more topics than Betty does. It goes deeper, right? But it's a really comprehensive bot, but it's available all the time. So we really want to make sure that the technology you're using is actually ready to scale and ready to work out of the box. Okay? If you're looking at AI chatbot or you're looking at chatbots, because a lot of people will talk about chatbots, but they're not really AI chatbots, here's the things you want to look for, right? You want to look, is it available in multiple channels? SMS is the hardest channel to build a chatbot in. That's where we specialize. Okay, and it's harder because there's different rules about it. It's complex going through the carriers, it's things like that, right? But you really want to be in the channels that you want, including in WhatsApp. Okay, you want to make sure you've got the right scope, right? That the bot is going to. We talk about our minimum bot will be about 30 topics. We actually have a party bot that you can turn on in about 20 minutes. Right, the bot will be live. It handles 25 to 30 topics, a million different ways you can ask questions around that, and it can be live instantaneously. It'll send out discovery text to your guest and say, hey, I'm a bot, I'm here to help, I'm here to answer questions. You want to know what the correct response rate is. The correct response rate, importantly, from a measurement standpoint, is does the bot know the answer, and importantly, does it know it when it doesn't know the answer? Because what you have to have is confidence that the bot is going to respond correctly, and confident that it's going to say, hey, I don't know the answer, here's how you need to get help. Okay, ours are delivering, like I said, 95%, but you want to see that. You want to people should be able to prove that number to you. You also want to know what the false positives are. False positives are the worst thing, or the hardest thing to handle from an AI standpoint. It's when the bot answers a way that it thinks is correct, but it's actually incorrect. So a simple example, we haven't had this, but we've had some competitors had this, where you would ask for bag check. And it would say, oh, we have our store over here. Well, that's a false positive. The bot doesn't know. It's kind of funny, AI is dumb. It's just a probability that it's right. In that case, it's going to go, oh, they wanted to buy something from our store, so I'm more positive. Every time that question gets asked, it gets locked in further and further. It's really hard. It's harder to untrain a bot. So you have to really be all over these false positives. Again, this is something you have to pay attention to, and they should be monitoring and up close to real time. You want all these other features. You want true AI. And the easiest way to see if something is really AI, if it's really got some rigor behind it, is just ask it some different questions, right? And see if it's walking you down a scripted response. There's lots of bots out there. If you go try to order Pizza Hut pizza, it's a scripted bot. It'll walk you down. It'll say, hey, I want a medium pizza. Okay, what do you want on it? I want mushrooms. Oh, wait, I want a large. It says, sorry, you won't actually respond because it's not part of the script. The script was, I'm looking for toppings. Right? And you don't get to tell me, oh, you want to make a large pizza until you get all the way to the end and then you cycle back through. A lot of hotel bots are like that, where they say, hey, can you rate your hotel stay so far? And you'll say, well, I don't want to do that. You ask it anything else, it won't answer. Until you answer with a 1 to 10 score, and then it'll go back. That's scripted. You really want to make sure it's AI. And you want to make sure this thing can be deployed quickly. Okay, those are all things that you want to look out for as you're building these chatbots. The last thing I'll say is that I talked at the start with what our mission is. Our mission is, right, to provide instant access to information and to build community through regular text. What do we mean by that? We mean that your mobile phone number is more important than your social security number in the real world. If somebody takes your social security number, they can damage you, right? They can go get a loan, or they can hit your credit, but you'll get that resolved. And your mobile phone number is the way to reach you individually, right? So if I get enough trust in you by delivering what we're doing, customer support bot first, to deepen that relationship, then I open the door to moving beyond that. But what that means is we've got to step up our game, right? So the first thing is marketers can't say, like we do with email, well, I know I'm going to get a 3% open rate, so I'll just keep sending this stuff out. Well, we don't need to do that in our world with SMS. Because of the high click-throughs, if you send something, you better make sure it's high value, right? So the point is with SMS is that you're using customer support to begin to open this door. And once you open that door, you're going to go deeper with them. And you want to just keep going that. And once you have that connection, why would you turn it off? Right? We have a fan engagement bot working for the Premier Lacrosse League. right? It's a professional lacrosse league that just launched. They tour around the country. So those bots are about fan engagement. It's about deepening that community. And the people that are in that community want to hear from them. They don't want to be spam, but they want to hear about the events, about the stats, about things like that. So it's actually thinking differently about how do we use this channel because it's so powerful. Again, once you have a 98% read rate, once you have a less than 5-second open rate, it changes how you communicate. I will guarantee you that, because we don't do it, right? You will not get 40 or 50 notifications from a chatbot, right? Because you would just turn it off like you do in other channels. Right? The reason you get all those notifications is because we don't know they don't get read, right? So when we start to change this lens and say, what do I send that's really high value? That's where you want to be. So we're in a booth over there. Happy to answer any questions. I'm not sure how much time we got, a couple more seconds, but happy to answer any questions you have about chatbots. And certainly, I'm over the opposite far end of this and happy to discuss this for anybody else wants to talk further. Any questions during the event, so you can actually act on the event, and it can be something as simple as saying, hey, how's your energy level right now? What are you thinking of the event? If you actually sorry, I don't know if it's on there. If you text Betty right now, so if you just say feedback, everybody if you could, just say feedback. Okay, so I can send this out to sample throughout the audience, right, or throughout the day. Right, or a 3-day event, 4-day event, whatever it is. I can send this out. So I'm not hitting everyone, right? But I'm beginning to get these micro feedback that allows me to change what happens at the event. We've had events where we've had a BizBash event where we started texting the bot saying we can't hear the speaker in the big forum, right? We can't hear the speaker. Well, that's a problem, right? So now you can react instantly. So we tend to think about it differently. We want to try to, how do you get the same level of insight or more insight in a better way? The most powerful thing to remember about what we're doing is every single text that anyone sends this bot, an event bot, is customer feedback. You know who sent it, you know what their need was, you know when they had that need, and you know if the need was fulfilled. So if any of those things break down, if the need wasn't fulfilled, you know who to reach out to specifically, right, to deal with it. So the other thing it does is it pulls this out of social and allows you to now move in one-to-one. Any other questions? All right, well, I'll let you go to I think the forums next, right? That's the next big thing on the first floor, right? Okay. Event Innovation Forum, first floor. Happy to talk as long as you want after this. Love what we do. Thanks for coming by. I hope to see you either in the booth or at the party or something one on later on. Okay, thanks everybody.